Welcome to Whova's Event Insider panel discussion series. My name's Marisa, and I'm your host. Each Event Insider session invites experienced event professionals to cover a new event industry topic. Today's session will dive into the topic of association events, joined by Lori Ball, Executive Director of the Special Education Network and Inclusion Association, and Natalie Vega-Rhodes, the Assistant Conference Coordinator for the American Mathematical Association of Two-Year Colleges. If you're interested in viewing more content for event organizers, subscribe to our channel where you can see more interviews with top event professionals and new content on the latest event industry trends. Now let's get into the discussion. Hello and welcome everyone. We're excited to have you all here today at our Event Insider panel discussion. I'd just like to start off by introducing myself. My name is Marisa and I will be your host and moderator for today's session. We do have a wonderful panel discussion planned for you all today with two amazing guest speakers. So I just want to thank you all for being here, and I'm really excited to get into it shortly. So we are going to officially start the panel and introduce our guest speakers in just a couple minutes. And before we do, I just want to give a little bit of background on the purpose of today's session as to why we are all here today. So we know that many event organizers are seeking resources and tips, not just from technology vendors like Whova, but also from other organizers who have already put on their own virtual, hybrid, in-person events and have different experiences to share. So here at Whova, we started hosting event experts to share their experiences with hosting all kinds of events. And we have been hosting these guest speaker sessions for a while now. And we do plan on continuing this Event Insider series every month with a new topic. And today's topic is going to be about association events. So we chose this topic because we know that organizing association events comes with its own unique challenges. And, given the major shifts in event formats since the start of the pandemic, we thought a discussion geared towards association events specifically could really highlight some important insights about the new challenges organizers are facing. So this forum today will just, aim to open up conversations about up-to-date trends and best practices in organizing association events, just to give you all the chance to learn by listening to a couple of experienced professionals in the field. So I just want to take this time now to introduce our guest panelists who are going to share some really useful tips and insights from their recent events. So first up, I'm very excited to welcome Lori Ball, who is the Executive Director of the Special Education Network and Inclusion Association. Lori, I'm going to go ahead and turn the mic to you now, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. As Marisa said, I'm Lori Ball and I'm the Executive Director of SENYA, and we are a nonprofit international organization, and our mission is to advocate for and provide resources for individuals with special needs in our communities. And we have local and regional chapters in almost every continent, and we are providing scholarships and awards for students and advocates for students with special needs. So we've put on 2 virtual conferences through Whova, and we have lots of great things to share for you today.
Awesome. Thank you for that introduction, Lori. We are so excited to have you here today. And our second speaker here with us is Natalie Vega-Rhodes, who is the Assistant Conference Coordinator for the American Mathematical Association of Two-Year Colleges. Natalie, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Natalie, as Marisa just said. So our organization primarily serves college and university math faculty with a focus on math in the first 2 years of college. We have regional and kind of local chapters across North America. And we even have some folks that will come in from other areas of the world as well. While we do have some paid positions within our organization, most of us within the organization are volunteers. And, we'll kind of get into a little bit of that throughout the session. So I won't share too much just yet.
Awesome. Thank you, Natalie. We are so excited to have you both. You both have such great experiences in running conferences, and I'm just excited to hear what you'll share during our discussion today. But before we get right into those questions, I just want to quickly remind all of our participants that we will be reserving the last 15 to 20 minutes of today's session for questions from the audience. So throughout the session, I highly encourage you to type any questions you have for Lori and Natalie in the Q&A tab. And then also vote for those questions from other participants that you're most interested in hearing about, because I will be prioritizing the most voted questions at the end, just in case we can't get to all of them. But with that announcement out of the way, and now that we are all here, we can just go ahead and get started with the questions. So just to start off, I want to get right into it and talk about membership. So my question is, are all of your virtual attendees members of your association, or do you have non-members attending your virtual events? And if you do have both, what is roughly the breakdown of those two groups? Natalie, do you want to go ahead and take this one first?
Sure. So before COVID, our events were in person. We had attendance ranging from about 800 to 1400. And again, that's, generally speaking, depending on the location and some other factors. The last two events in this year have, of course, been interesting. In 2020, we shifted to a virtual format with no cost to attendees. And we had, I think we had about 2,000, a little over 2,000 attend. So that was, we were able to see an uptick. In 2021, our event was both in person and virtual. This year, we're also offering a hybrid format, but I'll talk a little bit about kind of the, evolution of that in a little bit. Before 2021, our numbers were about maybe 84% in person, 16% virtual, though we do have our recordings available, on our internal member site.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So I just want to follow up with that and kind of ask about that transition to the virtual format. Did you find that the event in a virtual format was, helpful for retaining existing members or expanding your membership and kind of recruiting new members?
So that's a great question. Our membership numbers are actually really heavily correlated with our conference attendance. When people join, they can register at the membership rate. Our conference last year, this in 2021, it was about 40% of our normal attendance. But even though membership went down, we didn't take as big of a hit as we might have expected. We were expecting about 60% rather than 40. But we did receive a lot of feedback from our 2020 virtual only session. Again, that was complimentary to attendees, that the sessions were excellent. And it was a good introduction to our organization, AMATIC, for those who may have wanted to know what it was about or previously didn't attend one of our in-person conferences. So definitely, I would say that it's particularly beneficial for gaining new members.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And Lori, I want to turn the attention to you and kind of ask the same question. How effective do you think that the virtual format has been for, engaging members and growing awareness about your organization?
Yeah, it's been extremely effective. Like Natalie, all of our conferences were in person before, and we generally had our focus in Asia. So we would have our conferences at international schools located somewhere in the Asia region. And we generally had about 450 members attend our conferences. When we shifted to virtual in 2020, our first conference, we had about 900 come, and we were so excited about that. We just couldn't believe that many people came to our conference. And then this year we had 2,300 come. So the amount of members who have joined since starting virtual, it's been incredible. And part of that has to do with our pricing structure, which I can share now or later, whatever you'd like.
Okay, well, awesome. Thank you both for sharing that. And, it sounds like you've both been able to really provide your members with valuable experiences, with these virtual formats and actually grow, the awareness about your organization. So I'm glad to hear that those virtual events have worked well in that way for you. I just want to step outside of the virtual events you've hosted and ask what other channels, have you leveraged to recruit new members or grow awareness about the association? And what do you find of those to be the most effective? Lori, do you want to go ahead and take this?
Sure, yeah. We use all the social media channels, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram and Twitter. We have well over 15,000 Facebook followers, I believe. So we believe we get a lot of people signing up for our conferences through that. We also have a monthly newsletter that we send out, and soon we'll be starting a membership program that people pay for, and they can join something called a Mighty Network. And it's kind of like a Facebook, but it's just for members, and we can do live webinars and Q&As and things like that through there. So, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Natalie, do you want to jump in on this question as well?
Sure. So I talked a moment ago about gaining new members, and we really think that this is attributable to efforts that we've been making in recent years to make members more aware of our non-conference membership benefits. So we've increased the number of our webinars a lot. We've been encouraging our communities to connect with their members virtually more often. And we've also designed new small scale but frequent professional development opportunities, things like book club, faculty meetups, even like a focus on wellness right now, whatever it might be as well. Like Lori said, we do have social, we have, various reach outs there. Then we also, I would be remiss if I didn't say this really fun thing that we're doing. So we have this My Amatic, which is communities virtually, and we can really communicate with each other, send questions. Also, we have little communities within Amatic, like, for example, Project Access, which is new faculty within the first 3 to 4 years of teaching, and we've formed communities there. So, and we really try to develop sort of the relationships throughout, because that really is the strength of our organization, is how we can network with each other.
Yeah, and just to build upon that, that's the same exact focus that we have, is that networking with one another. You can feel isolated as a special education teacher or speech language pathologist, especially if you're teaching at international schools overseas. And so it's that networking piece that we really focus on. And something that's part of HUVA is that community board. And that's been really great for the networking piece for our community.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. And thanks both of you for sharing those, creative strategies for engaging and networking and, creating that community throughout the year. And I'm just going to shift gears here, because I'm really interested to hear, about this next question from both of you. And that topic is going to be on sponsors and exhibitors. So as we all know, sponsor and exhibitor retention can be a huge challenge, even without the heightened uncertainty over the past couple of years. But I do know that both of your recent events have had a handful of sponsors and exhibitors. So I want to ask about your experience with this, and how would you say the pandemic has affected your sponsor and exhibitor base? And then maybe as a follow-up to that, how have you been able to retain and grow sponsorship in such an uncertain time? Natalie, do you want to go ahead and jump in on this one?
Absolutely. So I think we have to think of this as like in the before time, and then, we've got like 2020, 2021, and then kind of, moving into the future. So in 2020, we partnered really closely with our exhibitors, and we have different tiers. And so our highest level that we had the closest relationship with, we partnered really closely with them to offer our virtual conference. And part of this did allow us to offer it for free to attendees. In our conversations, we made sure that we prioritize their needs so that it would be beneficial for everyone, the attendees, of course, the exhibitors and sponsors, and then of course us, the organizers. Not only that, we were able to collect a lot of really useful information as far as what worked and what we could improve upon for 2021. So when we thought about sponsorship opportunities for 2021 in these trying times, we did offer the opportunity or the option to refund companies for the in-person events. But because we had a great platform, we used HUVA last year, we were comfortable shifting them to the virtual days. We even had a company cancel their in-person presentation. We refunded their money, and then they repurchased it for the virtual days. Now, we definitely lost vendors in 2022 due to their company policies that wouldn't allow travel, and personnel who weren't comfortable, or 21, sorry, who weren't comfortable traveling. The vendors we did have scaled back on the size of their booths in person. Initial indications indicate that will also be the case this year, and we're hoping to see a rebound for 2023 and beyond. But we also want to be really creative about how Whova can allow us to sell maybe alternative digital packages, but we're still figuring that out, right? We're on this journey together. I will say though, the digital exposures that we did give what we call our corporate partners, our highest level there, which was complimentary sponsor exposure and a virtual booth. That was definitely part of the conversation about how we were continuing to provide full value to them for their sponsorship package, even though some of the original features weren't happening. So we didn't have to give partial refunds on those packages.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, thank you for sharing that. And I'm curious, with those digital options, how did your sponsors and exhibitors feel about, being able to really engage with the attendees virtually in the digital booths that they used during the
I mean, they loved it. There's honestly, several of them had actually said, oh, we've used Whova before, and they had a great experience with it. So that was really nice and also really helpful for us. And then, y'all have that really nice exhibitor guide that is just, we can just send it to them and they can upload and do whatever. So getting started for them was easy. They really enjoyed interacting in the virtual space as well. And again, it was easy because that's one of the most important things with technology is, can it be easy?
Exactly. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And Lori, I'm going to ask you the same question. How do you feel that, your sponsor and exhibitor base has evolved in these past couple of years?
Yeah, well, the first time we had sponsors was for the virtual conference. So we were working off that. We did have a few people tell us that their company policy was that they could not sponsor virtual. So that was fine. But the ones that did sponsor went well. We also had tiered sponsorship like Natalie, and our gold sponsors we had a introduction at the start of every keynote saying, this speaker is brought to you by this gold sponsor. And so that really did a lot for them. They were quite excited because they had so much reference to their company at the beginning of each keynote presentation. The cost of sponsorship was not high because we wanted more to engage. The live exhibitions went very well, and they had an opportunity to speak live with people who came to our conference. So they just set up live showcases and that's part of Whova. So that was really great for all of them. And the following year, we only had one sponsor who didn't re-up for that year. And it was just because of a policy change for them. And one other thing that we do for them is if they are a sponsor, then we advertise for them, depending on their tier, on social media channels and in our newsletter. So that's been really helpful because they're getting all that exposure as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Natalie. Those are some really useful insights about, how to manage sponsors and exhibitors during this time. So I'm excited to move on to this next topic, actually, as I do imagine it's one that our audience members are eager to hear about, which is event profitability. So my question is, do you have any tips on how to generate revenue from your event, or, could you share your strategy for making a virtual event profitable? And Lori, I'm going to turn the mic back to you. Do you want to take this one?
Yeah, we were really worried about the numbers, and so we decided that. So let me just give you a little background. At our past conferences, they were generally special education teachers or specialists in the field. And what we believe at Senya is that all teachers and all experts can benefit from our conferences because it's good teaching. So we were really trying to market to general education teachers as well. So we decided to start a new pricing structure. So it was $250 for individuals that came. But if they were able to bring over 20 people, the cost, so if they were able to bring over 10 people, the cost reduced to $125 per person, so significant. And then if they brought over 20, it was $99 per person. And then we did a flat rate for a school. So if a whole international school wanted to attend our conference, they could pay $5,000 and every individual in that school could attend our conference. And so what that did was, not only did it get us huge numbers for our organization, but it brought in a lot of people that wouldn't have normally been able to attend our conference, nor had maybe shown interest in it. And so we got a lot of general education teachers in learning about how to best support students with learning needs. So it was great, both financially and just for the sake of our students.
That's a really interesting strategy. Thank you for touching on that. Natalie, I'm gonna shift the mic to you and see kind of your thoughts on event profitability.
Sure. So the event itself, I'm going to answer this sort of in two parts. The event itself, holding an event during COVID is the most fun, right? It sometimes made it hard to trim our budget. We had increased expenses like plexiglass barriers, sanitizers, and also we felt that a greater percentage of our conference attendees for the in-person portion would stay on site for meals as opposed to venturing out. So that then resulted in us having to order meals for a higher percentage of attendees than we would in a normal year. For the event itself, we did lose money on the 2021 conference, but I don't have any specific numbers just yet. That being said, we talked previously about, gaining new members and things like that. And that really has sort of been our strategy here, because we have different price points for, are you coming to the in-person? Are you coming to the virtual event? Why would it make sense for you to be a member? And we talked through all of those things throughout the year. In addition to, the things I previously mentioned, we also have, a quarterly journal that comes out, newsletters and things like that. And again, the whole networking and the whole, we get together with 1,000 of our best friends once a year. But we should be continuing those conversations throughout the year. So we also have things like institutional memberships and even library memberships where they can get just our journals. So all of those things together, it's sort of entwined with, it's not just the event, it's the whole year. And how can we continue to serve our members, because that's going to drive our numbers up. And then the event will be, our big celebration and joyous reunion of our family.
That's great, Natalie. Thank you so much for touching on that as well. And Natalie, I want to shift the focus here. I know that your recent event was in a hybrid format, which you mentioned earlier. And, hybrid events can be a great way to satisfy two sets of audiences, but we do know that some organizers tend to shy away from this option of an event format, as it can be seen as, a challenge of essentially running two events at once. So I just want to ask, what did your event format look like exactly? And how was your team able to manage this hybrid option successfully?
Sure. So first of all, for those of you that think it's essentially running two events at once, I feel you and I see you. I feel you. I think the most important thing that I need to note is that my team, my conference committee is such an agile team. As you've seen from our shifting events each year, we've sometimes had to pivot really quickly to meet the needs of our members. We were oftentimes we're right now we're planning for our event that's going to be in November, but we are also doing pre-work for our event next November. So we have a long runway to be planning these events. So when the decision was made to go virtually, we had already had our program and everything else. And then we had to remake the event schedule, have clear communication with our vendors that we talked about, but also the presenters, everyone, to make sure everyone was on the same page. So last year, which was the first true hybrid year, we did have a learning curve. I would say 100%. It was like running two events at once, again, mostly because of that long runway, right? And so what we did was we set up the in-person component, and then later we set up the virtual days. But I will say it was also beneficial that we were able to have, like Huva, and also both of those things, because although I wasn't able to physically attend the conference last year, I was able to support it remotely, as well as the virtual days, which worked really well. coupled with that, we took the experience that we learned from 2020 to improve 2021. And then this year, we took everything that we learned from both of those years. So we changed our submission process, our deadlines, even our options for how the submissions could be, the presentations could be submitted for both vendors and potential presenters, so that we can make decisions and plan for it as a single event instead of two separate ones. Excel is our best friend, as is Smartsheet. But essentially, it is a learning curve. And so if you're thinking about a virtual event, first of all, like I would 100% recommend it. If you're thinking about a hybrid event, I would also 100% recommend that, because you're going to have people that can't come to your in-person. And if you can just kind of think a little bit about what's your process look like right now, and what minor changes can you make, because the changes that we made really weren't that super drastic from the before time to now, but now we're at a point where we truly can look at it as a single event, and we're actually getting ready to build our program for that, here in, I guess, a month. So we're getting reviewers to review our submissions right now.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And so I want to ask, though, how did your team come to that conclusion to decide to set up the hybrid format in that way, where you had your virtual and in-person days? How did that work for you?
So it's kind of through, it's organic, I would say. Our team talked about what might work. We talked to others. Our board was definitely a huge part of that, being that our board is sort of all over the US as well, and representative of their member base in each place. They were gathering information, and, others that are much wiser than me talked with, our conference coordinator as well, and the executive board, and they all got together and came up with this. We threw out the ideas, but ultimately, like, it was a joint conversation between the board and our team to kind of decide what the best option would be for our members.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that process. I appreciate it. And
Mhm.
I know that you used, some of Huva's tools to manage that hybrid format, which does take us to our next question for you both. I know that both of you have used Huva for your recent events. And so I'm just curious to hear about each of your, experiences using event management platforms. Was this your first time using Huva or any event app? And what are some ways that, event management software has really helped your team in comparison to old planning processes? Does someone want to jump in on this one first?
Oh, I can start if you want, or did you say Lori?
Go ahead, Natalie. Please.
Okay. So 2021 was our first time using Huva. Before that, we did use another app. There are lots of great features that I can talk about offline, but some highlights are this. We saved thousands of dollars by not printing our conference program. Huva made that possible. It's really easy to navigate with the agenda feature, and that change is going to stay with us. Now, we may eliminate 2 entire printed publications, but we haven't made that decision yet. And, also, as I mentioned before, our vendors said they had worked with Huva before and they liked it. So they definitely approved of our choice, and we're looking forward to that. One of my favorite stories that our conference coordinator told me was that after being in a conference room all day with the board meeting, they drove, because I wasn't there, but they drove out to one of the members' houses, one of the members of the board, and they were enjoying the weather in the backyard because it was in Phoenix and it was really nice. And at one point, our conference coordinator mentioned how cool it was that even before the event, the conference attendees were already playing around on the app and even learning or earning points on the leaderboard, even though the conference hadn't even started yet. So then the conversation was, points, how do you earn points? Let me see my phone. And instantly everybody on this beautiful evening, surrounded by the mountains, and the sun's setting, and everybody's looking at the phone, trying to figure out new ways to earn points. And so, that was a super fun story that she was able to share.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that fun story. I love to hear how, people have been able to use and really engage their audience with those, fun gamification options. Lori, do you want to jump in on this question too?
Yeah, of course. This is our second time using Huva. And from the back end, find it, at first there is a learning curve, But what's really nice is anytime you need to do action, there's a little chat window right in Whova, and people respond immediately. Really handy and nice for someone like me, and I really appreciated it. There's several features on Whova I really like. One this year started, and we just tried it out, was the career fair, and it was cool because we had administrators. We were always looking for a way for administrators of schools to join our conference, because what would happen is many teachers would come to our conference, get all these ideas, go back to administrators, and they would see a need to buy a program or make a change in their curriculum or things. So administrators wanted to hire learning support teachers or specialists in the field, and so they would post through our career fair. So it was a win because they would get job applicants, and we had administrators. So that worked out really well. Again, it was our first year, so we only had about 12 schools advertised, but we believe it's going to grow. Now, the second thing is just that community board. Like Natalie said, the leaderboard contest is fun to watch people engage. But what it also did was it brought parents together who have children needs. And so there were special channels set up for parents to speak with one another and learn from one another. There were speech language pathologist channels. So you can just work through that we had different channels set up for different professionals or parents. And it just got everyone talking and asking questions. And it's such a safe place. I think Natalie used the word 1,000 of their best friends. And that's how we always feel when we go to a Senya conferences. We're surrounded by our peeps finally, and people to chat with. And this gives us a really good chance to ask questions of one another and learn from each other. And then one fun thing was somebody set up a dad jokes channel. And so everyone just told their funniest dad joke, and it just really kind of broke the ice and was a lot of fun for everyone. So
awesome. Thanks to you both for sharing that. I love to hear those fun little ways that, people have been able to really create some sort of liveliness in their virtual events. So thank you both for that. And I just want to follow up quickly and ask, what would you say is your most valuable feature used with Whova? Just because, every event is different, and, it's always useful to hear which tools work differently for different types of events, or for your team specifically.
Yeah, for me, it was being able to set up the speakers and agenda right there in Whova, and then copying the widget or whatever it's called and putting it straight into our website. That was really nice, and it looked great as well.
Awesome. Natalie?
I have to agree. So there's so many great features. And so if I had to pick one, I'm going to cheat because they're entwined. It would be the agenda feature in conjunction with the speaker center, because we were able to send individual links to the speakers to where they could create polls, they could manage their Q&As before or during the session, and even upload resources or their presentation. Before, when we were using another platform, that wasn't a possibility. So we were having to manually upload each presentation. That was kind of intense for us, but that was most useful for us. And then of course the agenda feature, where you can very easily filter by, oh, I really am interested in talks on statistics or equity or whatever it is, or both of them together, right? So that's really nice. And also having it just on the app with the wayfinding, where it's like, what room is this and where is that? It's really, really easy.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Thanks for touching on that. And we are getting close to the end of the session. Before we jump into, our Q&A nearing the end here, I just want to take a minute for this next question, take a step outside of the events topic, just to talk about something that, has affected all of us. We know that, the Great Resignation and recent employment trends have created staffing difficulties for organizations across all different industries. So I just want to hear about your experience with this. How has your organization managed any, personnel changes in the past couple of years? Lori, why don't you go ahead and start with this one?
Yeah, well, Senya has always been a volunteer organization, and currently I'm the only paid employee, and I've only been executive director for 2 years now. So we're kind of at the beginning stages of hiring people. But I would say volunteer wise, where we are right now in education, it's an extremely trying time. And so trying to get volunteers has been a challenge recently. The volunteers we have are extremely dedicated, but they're also tired and burnt out. So it's just trying to keep everyone motivated and excited and passionate about the organization is the challenge right now.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Natalie, do you want to take a moment on this one too?
Sure. So I definitely can agree with what Lori said, but I will say our organization has been stable because of the historical successes of our conference and the wisdom of our predecessors in building up our reserves. We did have to tap into our reserves, over the past couple of years. And they've been tough, but we've been able to keep moving forward, building for the future rather than having to shut down and operate in emergency mode. And we haven't had to lay off any staff. Lori talked a little bit about the state of education. Same. Our organization has so much volunteer leadership, but the stresses of the pandemic have affected our total capacity as an organization. Just when we might like to be increasing marketing and outreach, we've just been too tired to take on more in addition to everything else that's been happening. So that's like I said, it's although everybody is so dedicated, although everybody is willing to give it their all, it is tough right now.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys both sharing about that so candidly. And I just want to follow up. I know that you both mentioned you've, rely on your volunteers and it's been harder in this time. So I guess how have you kind of, restructured your volunteer program or changed the role of your volunteers in your organization?
I guess I can start. So I don't necessarily think we have officially said, well, we're changing your role. But as I mentioned, my team, I love my team so much. I just love them. They're amazing. They're so agile. Normally in March, we have an in-person meeting where we put the program together, and it makes sense for a lot of different reasons. So we had to shift that to being virtual. Well, I have the 3 monitors. This is the monitor number 3, and I use all 3 of those now for our program meeting, where we have multiple people working in, we use Smartsheet, we use a variety of different things so that as we're updating stuff in real time, all of us are seeing those changes. So I wouldn't say necessarily that the role of the volunteer has changed. It just might look different how we do things, just like everything else, right? Like just like teaching, just like whatever it is, like your life, everybody's life has changed over the past couple of years. So too has just like, even though you're still teaching, that might look a little different now. Just like we've been volunteering, it might look a little different now, but you're still accomplishing the same series of tasks, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And Lori, how about you? How how has it been kind of maintaining and working?
Yeah, I don't have much to add except like Natalie, our board is, we love everybody. It's such a great group to work with. And, building that first virtual conference, it was like we were building the plane as it was flying, and everyone just worked so well together. So, there was that, but then we did a little bit of restructuring. We had kind of 7 key people that we were counting on at the beginning of the pandemic, and now we have 20. And so they're directors and associate directors who all are working towards different parts of our organization. One group is scholarships and awards. Another part is putting together coursework and getting that running. Another is the conference. So it's just a bunch of people working toward different things, but all ultimately for the students. So
Great. It's great to hear how much support you guys both have, within your volunteer groups and your organization. So thank you both for sharing on that. And it looks like we do have a number of Q&A questions racking up here. But before we head into that live Q&A portion, I just want to wrap up this conversation on a hopeful, forward-looking note. So my final question for each of you is, could you please choose one simple word to describe your outlook on 2022? And then maybe just give a brief explanation for that choice. Let's see, Natalie, do you want to go ahead and start?
Sure. Can I secretly say, y'all, this is my favorite question. So I'm torn between adventure and quest. So I'm going to say adventure quest, but the definition of adventure is an unusual and exciting, typically hazardous experience or activity, because I looked it up. In most adventures, it sort of feels like the protagonist was thrown into the experience. Like if you think of Bilbo at the beginning of The Hobbit or Frodo at the start of Fellowship of the Ring. And I feel like the last few years have definitely been an adventure. And while 2022 kind of feels like it will be an adventure too, it's going to be an adventure in the best sense of the word, because we've learned so much over the past 2 years that has helped us to be better than ever. But quest in literature is defined as the search for something. We've been on our adventure, we're still on our adventure, but now it's turned into a quest to create the best experience, whether that's in person, virtual, hybrid, or whatever, for our attendees.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you, Natalie. And Lori, why don't you go ahead?
Okay. I don't know how I can follow that. But I would just say hopeful, which you mentioned earlier, but hopeful is my word, because we have also planned a set of in-person conferences that we're really hoping will work. Right now, we just had to postpone one that we were originally planning, but we still believe it's going to happen. So I'm just hopeful that eventually we want to continue. So the good thing is about the virtual conference is we have decided that no matter what, we will have a virtual conference every single year, because it brings more people together internationally than we could have ever imagined, and it builds our network. But we also want to have that in-person conference because it builds our community in a more local sense. So hopeful that we'll be able to do that.
Awesome. Well, those are two very inspirational word choices from you both. So I'm glad that we were able to kind of wrap up our main discussion on that note. And it is just about a quarter till, which means it's time to start moving on to our live Q&A portion of the session. And I do see that there are a number of great questions asked already. And I just want to point out again that it's not too late if you want to add in a question or upvote any questions that you're interested in hearing about. But let's just go ahead and get right into it so we can get through as many as we can before the session ends. So our first question is from Allison, who asked, can you share some innovative sponsorship benefits that you have offered that have been popular? Does someone want to go ahead and jump in on this one?
Sure. So we, as the theme, right, is that we're flexible and we're constantly asking like, well, what do you want? Tell us what would work for you. But so we have had where we had the virtual booth. So they were able to actually have an actual virtual booth where they were able to talk to people. They were able to have videos. They were able to have product stuff, all of the features within Whova that were amazing. We also had virtual commercial sessions. We had, what else did we have? I'm trying to think of everything, because every year something has sort of slightly tweaked just a little bit. So Allison, actually, I can probably connect you with our advertising chair and or our conference coordinator, that they can give you a little bit more of a comprehensive answer, because I'm just kind of going off the cuff right now because my mind is in program mode, not so much exhibitor mode. But mostly I think the big picture that I would say is whoever your sponsors are or whoever you want your sponsors to be, I would just ask them, what do you want? And how can we work together to get it to where it's something that you want and something that's beneficial for us and our attendees? Because frankly, like the sponsors already have an idea of things that have worked either at other places that they've sponsored or that they would just like to try. And we've had a really good relationship with many of our sponsors, exhibitors, and all of that. So, being able to have that conversation, and also too, they just felt heard because they were like, oh boy, we get to, create this new world. Like Lori mentioned a little while ago, we were building the plane while it was flying. There's like there's an element of adventure in that too, because you get to, if you don't like the script, change it, right? Flip it and do what you want. You get to define for your organization the path that you get to go on. And so hopefully that's a little bit helpful. But if you want like some more specifics, just let me know. You can send me an email and I'll definitely be able to connect you.
Great, thanks, Natalie. Lori, do you have anything you want to add to this, or should we move on to the next question?
Yeah, we can move on.
Okay, awesome. So the next question is from Callie, who asked, how do you balance in-person and virtual / hybrid with very limited staff resources?
I can't answer that one.
Okay, I'll go.
We've only done virtual, so.
Okay. So I can 100% send you the link so you can see how what our schedule actually was. But what we did was we had our in-person event runs from Thursday through Sunday, and it's just 50-minute and 25-minute sessions. We have posters and things like that all throughout. What we did for the virtual event was sort of a similar type of a thing where we had 50-minute sessions, 25-minute sessions, we had concurrent, and then people were able to join, and basically the same experience that you're seeing in Hoover right now is more or less what we had. And then we recorded it just like is happening now, and we put those recordings on our My Amatic little community so that folks can access them after the session as well. Because while they're available on Hoover for, I think it's 3 months afterwards, we wanted them to still be able to have access to it afterwards.
Great.
And of course, people could log in whenever they want. So if they were interested in the 9 o'clock session, but not the 10 o'clock, they didn't have to. And our virtual days were just 2 days on a weekend so that it was as, accessible to everyone that wanted as possible.
Great, thanks, Natalie. And I think you just kind of touched on this next question, which is how do you organize the virtual conference in terms of timelines, multi-day conference versus 1 day, full days, half days? So maybe Lori, do you want to jump in on this one?
Sure, yeah. Well, ours is a little different because it's an international conference and we wanted people to be able to access our speakers for a very long period of time. So for the past 2 years, we've had pre-recorded sessions that our speakers have done. And then we made the conference weekend a live weekend so people could interact and watch the conferences and speak on the community board about what they were seeing and ask questions. But then we have the videos available for 4 months afterwards. So people can go back and watch the recordings at different times. And this has been really beneficial for our members because they say they're given more time to kind of take in all of the presenters. This year we had well over 50 presenters. So there was a lot of information to take in. So they had that. They didn't have to pick and choose. They can watch them all if they want. And then for our members who might speak English as an additional language, it gave them more time to process and the ability to watch the recordings more than one time.
Great, thank you for that. I'm just gonna keep moving here with these questions as we are getting more and more. So the next question is from Callie. Do you find that doing virtual and or hybrid poaches attendees from your in-person?
No, only because, and I say no asterisk because, because of travel restrictions or people's comfort level, we did have lower attendance, but the folks that came because we are a family and we are a community, and it is 1,000 of our best friends. So, that you came to the in-person, you were able to attend the hybrid anyway. The hybrid just gives us another option, especially in these times of like declining professional development funds and things like that. We still want to be able to reach out and have that community throughout the year. Frankly, with everybody in education having legislature changes and things like that, we need to be stronger than ever cover throughout the year, and we can't get together every day throughout the year. So we are able to supplement our in-person with all our virtual webinars and virtual events and things like that. But our in-person conference is truly our celebration event for the year. We are always so excited to be there, and it broke my heart that I couldn't be there in person last year. So no, I would say not. I would say that it would probably, once things start to get back, we will probably see even more people coming, would be my prediction.
Awesome. And thank you for sharing that. And thank you to Callie for that great question. I'm just going to keep moving here to our next question from Hannah, who asked, how do you encourage connections between virtual and in-person attendees during a hybrid event? So I think, Natalie, this one might be geared towards you since you have the experience with a hybrid. And jump in on it.
So I think this is an interesting question, because if your hybrid event is defined as an event that has, maybe you're streaming the sessions for in-person, so you've got people that are synchronously there, both in person and virtual. I've seen events done like that. And this may be a question for that type of event. I have some thoughts, but that's not how we ran our events. We ran ours in person, and we are going to, serve you 100%. And then we had separate virtual days, and we are going to serve you 100%. And by virtue of the way that was structured and inviting them to our community, MyAmatic, and the webinars and all those things, like the organic connections sort of happen. Again, we're looking at this not just as a single event and see you next year, but a single event that celebrates all the work that has been done throughout the year.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And we do have another question from Helen, which is about volunteers. She asked, what volunteers or paid positions do you have to support the technology, such as facilitating online sessions so presenters can focus on presenting, doing backend setup, and management on Whova or on site? Lori, maybe you want to jump in on this one?
Yeah, we pay our tech people to deal with the tech side of things, because that volunteers don't necessarily, well, our volunteers don't necessarily have that background. So that's a paid position for us. So yeah, that's all I have for that.
No, thank you.
For ours, it's volunteer. It's me and a couple other people that set up Whova. And, as Lori mentioned, though, there's a little chat in the bottom. So every time there was a question, it would be like, dear Whova chat, and they would be like, here's the answer. And that's really nice. I was able to support remotely. We also had people on site that were helping as well with various things, because of course Whova was entwined with the conference. So if somebody came and said, we need to change our session, we were able to really quickly do it on site. Having me be remote and being constantly watching the announcements or the questions and things like that, I was able to help in almost real time, almost instantaneously. But I will say that the setup was really easy. I mean, it's a little bit of a learning curve, but once you've got your event set up, it's really easy. As far as the virtual component, basically, like, we're on Zoom right now, and we're lucky because we've had 2 years of Zoom. It integrates really easily with Whova. So it basically is just like, let's have a practice session, make sure that your mic works, your camera works, your internet works. And then from there, it was pretty easy to get it sorted.
Great, thank you for that. I'm seeing there's a few questions I think that are geared towards Lori about organizing a virtual conference internationally. So we have the question from Atul, how do you organize an international virtual conference given the time differences?
Yeah. So that was another one of those the plane while it's flying moments of, oh no, what do we do? So that's why the first 2 years we've done the pre-recorded videos, which it's hard. It's hard for our presenters who are used to presenting in a live audience to record themselves. It takes much longer. And so we have heard some frustrations from our presenters in that arena. So this following virtual conference, we're going to change it up a bit, and we're going to offer our members who have signed up for the conference a chance to go to a live pre-recorded session with our speakers. So the speaker can present to a live audience. It'll be a small live audience. We'll record that and then we put it on Vimeo, and we can easily put a Vimeo link inside of Whova. And then that's how we set it up. So people can watch it at any time that they want, which is really convenient. It's not set on a schedule. And so they can pick and choose whenever they want to watch. So, and just so you know, Vimeo is not allowed in certain countries. And so that does pose a little bit of a problem. So you have to put it onto YouTube for those countries.
That's super informative. Thanks for touching on that question. Then someone else asked, Deborah asked, for international presenters, do you use CC translation? So for presenters that speak in their own language, is it then closed caption transferred to English? This is, of course, for recordings.
That's a great question. We have not used that. All of our speakers have recorded in English. So, but I'm going to look into it. Thank you.
I think PowerPoint has a feature that works where you could choose your language. So no matter what people are speaking in, it will change it to whatever language you want. The speaker can do this. So they could set it up as English. And if they were speaking in Italian, it would subtitle it in English.
Awesome. Well, thanks for jumping in on that, Natalie. I have another question from Bonnie, who asked, other than the passport leaderboard features, what did you find had the best interaction results with attendees? Does someone want to take this one first?
We had a Twitter contest, so we were hoping lots of people would tag us in their tweets. And so that worked really well. That was one of our favorite. It's not, I don't know if it's a feature on Whova itself, but that's one of the contests that we decided to do. And internationally, the only prizes that we could offer were cash prizes because people were winning prizes from all over the world. One word of caution with the leaderboard is anyone can post a topic. And so you get people that are very excited to win. And so sometimes the topics don't actually apply to, to the conference. So you have to be careful and decide how much you want to monitor that type of thing. But we loved seeing the passion of the people in the leaderboard contest. It was fun.
Awesome, thank you. I'm just going to move on to this next question, which I believe is for Natalie. This one has about 8 votes. So for a hybrid event, how do you incentivize people to attend in person versus virtual? And this question is from Jenny.
I think I slightly touched on that earlier when we talked about, do we feel that the event is poaching people? So, again, our priority, like we did have lower attendance this past year because of, various reasons related to COVID. But I think that as far as it goes, our celebration, our yearly celebration is really that. It truly is that, the community that we've built up throughout the years and throughout the past year with new members, making them feel welcome and included. Their voice is important. We want new people to come in and share their thoughts and ideas with us. All of these sorts of things really allow us to have them, why wouldn't you want to come to the party and meet these people in person? And I think especially right now, we're in an interesting time where everybody sees this, like with a screen you're looking at right now with my baby Yoda in the background, like this is what people see of me, and this is who they know of me. And being able to actually see people in person, it's like, I'm a real boy, where we're getting back to being able to want to see people in person. And I think it's an exciting time to really think about hybrid conferences for that reason.
Great. Yeah, thank you. So unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be able to get to all of these questions. I am looking through the chat as well as the Q&A, and there's tons of great questions being asked, but we are unfortunately just starting to run out of time here. It's just about 9 o'clock, so we are going to have to wrap up today's Event Insider session. I just want to thank you so much, Lori and Natalie, for speaking in today's panel and just for sharing all of your experiences so candidly with all of us.
It's just been such a pleasure having you guys here, and I really can't thank you enough.
We hope you found this panel helpful. If you're interested in more videos like this one, be sure to subscribe to our channel, where you can explore the rest of the Event Insider series and more content for event planners. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.